Hi everyone, hope you are feeling positive and healthy. Please subscribe with all bell notifications if you haven't already, and please don't hesitate to leave your valuable feedback and advice below. Thank you very much. Let's jump into the stories. Serious, what's the most immature thing you've seen a grown-ass adult do? This woman and her husband confronted me and tried to start a fight for unfriending her on Facebook. We are in our mid-30s and have never interacted on Facebook and haven't spoken 5 years. I walked past the two mothers pushing prams, one of them having a second child walking alongside them, and upon seeing me, a man with dwarfism, one of the mothers started laughing, pointed at me, going look at the funny little man, to her older kid, clearly within earshot of me. And when I heard the kid say what is he, she said he's a midget. Felt like I got transported back to the 1800s freak show era or some crap. I just looked back to stare at her with an appalled look on my face. She didn't respond to me at all. It's like she didn't even acknowledge me as a person. Great attitude to instill in your kids. I work in retail, and it amazes me how quick grown-ups devolve back into children when there's a sale or during the weekend rush. They mess up the whole store, and the 2/3 staff who are free during closing have to clean up as best they can in the 15-20 minutes we've got. I've had customers throw away all shame over not being able to get their shoe size that was sold out / we received, some in front of their kids. And you just stand there wondering, you're really gonna teach your kids to behave like this when shopping? In public? Skeptical. When I tried to explain myself to my father and he kept interrupting me and mimicked every word I said like a freaking toddler. BTW, he's 60. My grandmother was telling that her mother-in-law was one of those people who needed attention constantly on them. At an important dinner with dozens of people were talking to her son and not her. She hid behind a pillar and would occasionally exclaim, "Since no one is listening to me, I guess no one wants to see me at all." I knew a girl who kicked 2 of her bridesmaids out of her wedding last minute because they weren't able to pay for all the exorbitant crap for her day, and then she proceeded to replace them with 2 broke meth addicts because she'd burned every other bridge. We were renting 2 rooms from my mother-in-law when things went south. Long story, basically after a long string of issues, she ended up assaulting me. We found a new place to live the same day, but came to an agreement that she would stay with my sister-in-law and we'd have everything out by Thursday. We ended up getting everything out on Tuesday. On Wednesday night, she decided to come back down and take her entire trash can, split open the bags, and leave it on the front yard. She also busted out her front window and claimed we did it. The upstairs neighbors at our place verified that we were, in fact, over at our new place all night. Better yet, mother-in-law's neighbors verified that we had not been over since Tuesday and the yard and window were fine then. Best yet, a nosy neighbor saw her car pull in the driveway that night, stay there for like 15 minutes or so, and peel out. In the end, she ended up costing herself a $300 littering citation and a new window. My stepmom used to bully me just because I was a child. Looking back, I realized she was on pills and probably extremely frustrated that she had to take me in when my mom died. It's still no excuse to pick on a 7-year-old. Bluff to check security cameras after being accused or something and then throwing a tantrum after video footage has damning evidence and storming off to his room. Yes, this is my dad. Also, for those who want details, the details make him even more immature. My mom lectured him saying he shouldn't wear nice pants when doing yard work. He wouldn't admit that he wore the nice pants for the life of him. This is when he bluffed and told me to check the security camera. My mom refuses to ever apologize to me for the simple fact that I am her child and therefore always wrong. BF at the time and I, early 20s, were at a hotel for a tattoo convention. He slightly disagreed with me over something and then kept arguing. But it was a matter of opinion, so I didn't bother arguing back. He got up, opened the closet, walked in and shut the door. I assume he expected me to beg him to come out, which is funny cause I didn't realize he was a huge homophobe, and he stayed in there for about 20 minutes. He came out, still mad, and gave me the cold shoulder for the rest of the weekend. A guy sitting at the bar of an upscale restaurant took a bowl of hot buttered popcorn the bartender had just set out for patrons to enjoy and put it between his legs on the bar stool. No one could get to it without reaching between his thighs. About an hour ago I was helping my dad work on his truck. The truck fell off the jack onto me. Luckily I'm okay outside of a decent gash, and some bruises, but the entire time I'm trying to get out from under the truck, he is just standing there screaming and cussing at me cause his truck might be damaged even worse now. Never once did he ask me, "Okay, Just kept screaming at me telling me I owe him whatever it costs to fix what I screwed up. Then TK after the fact be confronted by my mother telling me I need to move out because neither of us will ever be happy living with one another. So it's just a few more days until I get the inevitable please don't go I need the money you pay me for rent to afford my medicines. From my dad. I'm not even mad or frustrated. I guess the best way to describe this feeling is a very deep tiredness. There's only so much of your heart soul you can pour out to your abusive parents before you don't have any left for yourself. Without the money I give him he can afford his insulin. Without his insulin he dies. But the rent I pay is so high that it prevents me from being able to afford rent basically anywhere when you factor in my car payment and other bills. I'm so tired of waking up in the morning and defeat is the very first emotion I feel when I open my eyes. When I lived with my mother my chore was to clean the kitchen every day. Right, fine, fair enough. One day I didn't get round to it by the time she got home. Can't remember why. Anyway, she went nuts. Full on rage shouting. So I shouted back. I was a grown adult and the one time I didn't do it gave her no right to scream at me like that. Pissed me right off. So I said when was the last time you came home and it wasn't done? And she just looked so damned happy and proud and triumphant and said today. Then proceeded to act like she hadn't just been screaming at me 5 seconds before. Like I should just be happy for her cause she had a good comeback when I was shaking with rage from the way she had just treated me. I swear if it had been around back then she would have dabbed. I'm still pissed about it. Push their financial situation onto their kids who are all in elementary school. I was pumping gas and was headed to be security at a high-profile wedding. An old man was staring me down and as I began to leave 4 police officers pulled up blocked me in. I had to give them my ID and prove I didn't have a gun before they told me what was going on. The old man called in and told them I was posing as a police officer and was a rapist. The cops apologized, but since the guy was still around I asked for an apology from him. I'm wearing a suit and driving an old Corvette, plus I paid at the pump. Where did he get this information? As he was confronted he kept saying, I didn't do anything, and when asked why he called in on someone he began saying over and over, I don't remember doing that. I didn't do that. Yes you did, you white knight boomer. This is a small town and a lot of the older generation was notorious for pulling this. My neighbor, deadbeat, well in his 50s, used to come outside and yell at my mom for smoking on her porch. So when I went out and confronted him, he didn't like being yelled at by a young girl. So he started harassing me every time I walked outside about my dog, my career. I worked graveyard, the ducks that would walk through our yard. He would bitch about anything. Anyway, his house got destroyed by a hurricane a few years ago, so, karma. Any video of an adult yelling about having to wear a mask inside a store. Sometimes they have their kids in tow, so way to set an example there, you idiots. DLDR, cousin is a prick. He can eat crap. Cousin at the age of 30 tried to blackmail an 18-year-old into marriage, made incriminating fake evidence and nudes just to destroy her life. In an act of karma his laptop and phone died in the space of 2 to 4 weeks. Be lol if you're reading this. F you. When I was in high school, my dad's family and I were on vacation in Park City, Utah. My dad got a spider bite that was terrifying and literally taking over his leg. It was the size of a baseball, not exaggerating, purple, and it was like a giant crater seeping with pus and blood, and he was getting hot flashes and crap, and it was clear that he really needed to go to the hospital, that this was a serious spider bite not to be ignored or self-treated. Every time we tried to force him to hospital he threw a tantrum, like throwing his arms in the air and stomping his feet, like a 3-year-old, and he just treated it himself by rubbing colloidal silver all over it like 1,000 times a day. Looking back, I realize now, and I knew it then, but was sort of in denial. It was because he was high out of his mind on cocaine and opiates and didn't want the hospital figuring that out and basically outing him to all of us. We already knew. I mean, your dad can only fall asleep in his dinner plate in fine dining establishments so many times before you realize he's deaf on drugs. Anyways, my dad did a lot of other immature crap when he was in the depths of his addiction. But the spider bite thing was just a specific incident where I really took a step back and thought to myself, this is my dad? Like, is he qualified for this? Because I'm looking at 3-year-old throwing a hissy fit about going to the doctor and not a parent right now. A 40-year-old man on the floor huging what I think it's her wife's leg and saying, we are not leaving until you buy me that TV. I ran out of gas one time in an old car with a broken gas gauge. My then girlfriend was with me as I calmly got my gas can out of the trunk and walked 300 yards to a gas station. 10 minutes later we are on our way again. She's smiling and in an obvious good mood. I asked her why and she told me her ex once broke his toe kicking the car in a similar circumstance. Lol. I was a civil servant. I saw grown adults falsely accuse people of racism, sexism, or discrimination simply because they were told no, you can't do that. Case in point, at my job, I was scheduling people to see an academic counselor to discuss their grades. I used to work at a junior college. The student walks up and requests the counselor, who is booked solid. I told them they're unable to make an appointment, and to try back tomorrow, along with everyone else. The student says, "That's racist. You're being racist." Next thing I know, I was hauled into my manager's office for being racist. Of all the childish bullcrap. Saw a 70-year-old man make fun of a handicapped person at a political rally. No crap, I went to the store and bought some stuff for school, may have been 17. I got pencils, notebooks and paints. My mom walks into my room and goes, "What did you buy?" "Stuff for school." "I don't believe you." "What do you think I bought?" "Something totally inappropriate for your age." "I'm a freaking 17-year-old, how would I get away with that?" "Give me the bag." "No." "Fine, I'll go get your father." At this point I'm thinking, try me, bitch. My dad walks in, grabs the bag from me. I'm totally calm. "What did you tell your mother this was?" "Stuff for school." "So you told the truth?" "Yup." "And she didn't believe you?" "Correct." My dad slowly turns to my mom. I'm thinking, crap's about to go down, crap's about to go down. For the sake of my mom, let's call her Maris. "Maris, let me smell your breath." "I'm sorry?" "Let me smell your breath." For the sake of my father, let's call him Harry. "Harry, if you don't stop acting like a fool, I will call the police." That did it. She had crossed the line. He grabbed her, partly opened her mouth, and smelled her mouth. 17-year-old me didn't know what alcohol smelled like, and 20-year-old me still doesn't, so I was confused as hell. "Maris, you're drunk, and if I ever find your little stash, so help me I will get a divorce." TLDR, I got some stuff at the store. My mom thought it was 18 plus, she turned out to be drunk. Also, he did find her stash, and he turned out to not be kidding about the divorce. I have a feeling they're getting back together now that my grandma has leukemia. I mean, my dad regularly throws temper tantrums when people disagree with him about anything, screaming and yelling at the time. I remember a while back, I told him something along the lines of, "Hey, maybe you should lay off gay people. It's not like they're hurting anyone." And I got a 4-hour rant about how my generation is terrible and how we're all dirty communists, and the big gay conspiracy, and liberal propaganda, and a bunch of other things I don't care enough to remember. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. Maybe not seen, but I've heard grown men whine like children when I did phone work for a major ISP. The one that stuck out to me was a man who wanted a repair technician sent to him because he wanted to move his modem from one part of the house to another and the coax cable was screwed onto the back too tightly for him to use his fingers. He refused to use a wrench because I don't know the right size and the cable is supposed to just screw off with your hand. When I told him that the technician would cost $50, he said he'll try his hand again. He then proceeded to make whiny grunting noises for about 2 minutes. Like, the kind of noises someone makes when they make fun of someone for being whiny. My husband's father went up to a bucket labeled acid and leaned over it, with the lid on, looked up at my husband and I, since we were working with him that day, "I wonder if this is really acid." Insert opening the lid and taking a big whiff of the acid. Looks at us almost crying. "Yup, that's acid." He is a freaking moron, but I love him and look up to him. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening.